We know that the desire to record a permanent image began with pinhole and camera obscura. The first efforts were made in the 5th century BC and continued till the 4th century BC. However, the real success was achieved in the year 1826 when Niepce could take the first permanent image. And further in 1839, it was Daguerre who managed to get the first image of a person. While these two people succeeded in their mission, there were others also who were experimenting with the physics and chemistry of photography. For example, Chevalier's collapsible wooden camera came up in 1829. Daguerre's camera, known as daguerreotype, has its own characteristics. It had a lens in front covered by a disc, and it had two boxes. The inner box had a glass plate at the back. These two boxes could slide inside and outside. That is to say, they could move forward or backward. And when you had to take a exposure, all that you had to do was to remove the disc and take the exposure as much as you wanted. The outer box contained the lens, while the inner box, which had a ground glass fixed, could move forward or backward and was used for focusing the image. The disc in front worked as a shutter. By removing the disc, one could take the desired exposure. The focal length of the lens was 15 inches, the aperture 14, the film size, the plate size was 6.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and the duration of exposure 20 to 30 minutes. Similarly, there were others who made their own cameras and used their own processes. There was no standardization, and therefore these cameras came to be known as freak cameras. The favorite subject was landscapes, as these cameras required a great amount of exposure time. However, over a period of time, there was a need felt by all to bring it into a kind of smaller size cameras and with a faster shutter speed. Besides, these cameras were heavy, they carried glass plates, and they were very fragile and could break at any time. Therefore, they had to carry more glass plates. That means they had to have more equipment to carry. In addition to this, these people had to carry tents, darkroom equipment, so that they could process the film there only or make the film plates there only. They even had to experiment with exposures. Now, all this was packed into a proper equipment, and even porters were used to carry them. It looked as if they are going to the mountains to conquer them rather than take pictures. Among the other streak cameras were Walcott's mirror camera, in which the image was formed on the concave mirror and later transferred onto the sensitized material. This reduced the exposure from 3 to 5 minutes. Whitelander's all-metal camera, invented in 1941, had a 3.5-inch diameter picture. As I said earlier, there was a need felt for standardization, and gradually new cameras, modern cameras were starting to come onto the picture. While the process of standardization was going on, there were some specialized cameras which were invented over a period of time, and we will have a look at them one by one. Let us first take camera Lucida. It was introduced in 1674 and it was used for seeing virtual image. Next is chronographic camera, which was used to take pictures of the sun. Then we had detective cameras. These were hidden in hats, pocket watches and the like. In one case, this camera was tied to the ankle of a person who was sent into the Sing Sing jail in United States of America, where a woman for the first time in 1928 was being electrocuted. The press was invited, but the cameramen were not invited. But this man, he carried the camera and tied to his ankle, and he had the camera cable release in his pocket. He quietly exposed 3 times and got one of the pictures, which is a lifetime picture, and it has been used in the Life magazine as a story of the detective cameras being used. Among the other specialized cameras is flat bed camera, which is used for copying. We also have a half frame camera, in which the 35 millimeter film can be divided into 2 halves and shot accordingly. Instamatic camera, very popular, which could give 28 by 28 millimeter negative. Plate camera, it was designed to take glass plates and could be used with sheet films. Stereoscopic camera, with this camera you could take two pictures at the same time. Studio cameras, these are heavy cameras with a film size of 15 inches by 12 inches and these would move on a rail. Sub-miniature cameras, it was a camera which was used for taking pictures of a smaller size than 35 millimeter. Technical camera, it is a large format camera which offers camera movement. With that exhaustive list of specialized camera, let us now move on to the modern cameras. And before we discuss them, let us see what are the three formats of cameras which are available in the modern world. These are the cameras which have a size of 35 millimeter or below. Mostly 35 millimeter is used and the other ones are outdated. Then we have medium format camera which uses a 120 millimeter film and the negative size is 6 centimeter on one side and on the other side it can vary from 6 by 6 to 6 by 7 to 6 by 8 to even 6 by 17. Then we have large format cameras which start with 4 inches by 5 inches and go up to 20 by 24 inches also, but the most popular ones are 4 inches by 5 inches and 8 inches by 10 inches. Having seen the three formats of the camera, let us now see as to what are the cameras available to us within these three formats. We first have the view camera, then we have the viewfinder camera, then we have the TLR camera, SLR camera and of course, the most modern and the most used DSLR camera. A view camera is basically a light tight seal, which means to say that no light can enter into the camera unless it is planned for. The bellows are something like the bellows of an accordion or a harmonium, which are used, which can move up and down, forward and backward. It was first introduced in the 19th century and over the period of time it is being refined and over refined and today it is particularly one of the top cameras which is being used simply because of the large size of the negative. Though cumbersome looking, this camera has its own advantages and disadvantages. The biggest advantage is that it has a high quality picture. It permits you to view the picture in the ground glass before it is clicked. The front holding lens and the rear ground glass can be moved to ensure proper focus, perspective and depth of field. The camera being heavy is invariably placed on a stand, thereby avoiding camera shake. However, 4 by 5 inches camera, that is to say large format 4 by 5 inches camera can be used handheld with practice. Some view cameras have the movement facility in front and also in the ground glass. However, in some cases still there is a limited movement available. Rise and fall facility. In the case of architectural photography, the lines at the top look converging, but with this facility the lines look parallel, and in the case of SLR cameras there is a perspective distortion. Shift. This helps move lens horizontally rather than vertically, can control shine from a reflecting surface. Tilt. This facility enables the lens to move up and down. It is the best for getting greatest depth of field and is useful for landscape photography. The greatest advantage of this facility is that the aperture can be fixed by the photographer, which may be the best aperture for this particular lens, and get maximum depth of field. Now, this is quite against the SLR camera, in which the cameraman does not have the facility to fix this and he has to go by the preview button, see as to where can he get the maximum depth of field and accordingly shoot at the aperture, which may not be the best for taking this kind of a picture. swing. This facility enables swinging the bellows along the horizontal line to get the entire horizontal picture into focus. First, it must have a front lens element. It must have a shutter which could be operated manually through cable release or electronically. It can also have a cap in front of the lens, because in some cases when the exposure is long, the cap can be removed, and when the exposure is complete, then the cap can be put back. As I remember, it used to happen when we were in school for a group photograph. The third thing is that the lens must have an aperture, and the next thing is that the camera should be secured properly on a heavy stand. Last but not the least, the lens view camera can take a normal lens, a wide angle lens, or even a tele lens, but it cannot take a zoom lens. As I said earlier, view cameras are heavy and cumbersome, but they can also have a facility like a large number of sizes are available as far as negative is concerned, from 4 by 5 inches to 6 by 8 inches to 8 by 10 inches to 20 by 24 inches. So, there is a huge range available as far as view cameras are concerned. And one more facility, and that is they can also take large format sheet films. There are two types of view cameras. First, the monorail camera. This camera moves on a single rail, and both the ends, the front end and the rear end, are mounted on the same rail. This provides movement and flexibility while shooting. It is a very useful camera used in the studio. Field camera. This is resting on two rails and is very steady. This camera can be folded and made into a very portable equipment. However, this is not as flexible as the monorail camera. Sinar is the most popular brand as far as view cameras are concerned. It is available right from 4 by 5 inches to 8 by 10 inches. We will now see viewfinder cameras. First of all, let us understand as to what a viewfinder camera is. A viewfinder is primarily a facility available for the photographer to look through the eyepiece and see what is his composition going to be like. He can manipulate, he can move up and down, he can move right and left to get what he wants in his frame. He can see all this clearly and thereafter proceed with the next action. Viewfinders are found in both single lens reflex and twin lens reflex cameras. You would have seen a cameraman looking through the eyepiece, trying to focus the subject, also trying to compose the picture, and ultimately pressing the shutter. The effect of a viewfinder in the SLR or TLR varies whether the lens is common to both of them. Even then there is a difference when it comes to taking picture. Besides, the viewfinder carries lot of information which is very useful for the cameraman. It could be the aperture, it could be the shutter speed, it could be the exposure, it could be the focus, even the flash lighting available or not available, all or required or not required, all this is available to the cameraman to make a good picture. In the case of digital SLR cameras, even greater information is available like ISO, auto, histogram, number of pictures taken, and so on. As mentioned earlier, both SLR as well as TLR have a viewfinder system. It can happen that in some cases SLR scores over the TLR and vice versa. In the case of a TLR camera, there is a viewing lens and there is a picture taking lens. We view through the viewing lens and we take picture through the picture taking lens. The examples are Reflex camera and Yashica Electro 35 camera. I as a beginner used Electro 35 camera, and the biggest advantage in this is that while you are taking the picture, you can view till the end as to what is coming into the picture taking lens. But the disadvantage is that With the TLR camera, when you are shooting, when you are looking through the viewfinder, you are not sure whether your lens cap of the picture taking lens is open or not. I will give you an example of a great editor who went all the way to Nepal to visit that country and also to have a good safari. All he did was he took a lot of pictures, and when he came back home, he sent the film for processing and the entire rolls came unexposed. All that he did was he did not open the lens cap, and nobody had ever advised him to do so. The other disadvantage of a TLR camera is that what you see through the viewfinder and what you actually record, there is a parallax. Now this parallax may not be very visible if the subject is at a distance, but when you take a close-up or when you go closer to the subject, this parallax is rather evident, and maybe you will get a very different picture from what you had planned. This problem is completely overcome when you use a single lens reflex camera, in which the viewfinder looks through the lens itself. What happens is that the light passes through the lens, goes on to the mirror, and from there it goes to a pentaprism where it is reflected 3 times and ultimately gives the correct picture through the viewfinder. The disadvantage in this is that when you shoot the picture, the mirror lifts, it goes up and it covers your view, and therefore when you are shooting, you do not know exactly at that point in time where the subject was, whether it was the correct picture or not. It is called TTL, that is through the lens viewfinder. In this, the cameraman can compose the picture, can arrange his technical data like the shutter speed, the aperture, and when he fires the shutter, his view is obstructed because the mirror lifts up, and therefore in the end he is not sure whether he has got the right picture or not. But in most cases it happens that he gets the right picture. The other disadvantage in the case of a single lens reflex camera is that the viewfinder does not present 100% view in the case of, say, amateur cameras or lower grade. It can be 92% of the actual picture or maybe more, but 100% view is available only in the case of professional cameras. We will learn more about the single lens reflex cameras when we learn about their parts and their functioning. Single lens reflex cameras are made by many companies, particularly the miniature format, for example Nikon, Canon, Leica, Minolta, and so on. In the medium format SLR cameras, the examples are of Hasselblad and Mamiya. The technical system, whether it is the miniature format or medium format, is exactly the same. Only thing is, since the negative size is bigger in the case of medium format cameras, the quality of picture is very high vis-a-vis the miniature cameras. Having seen the film cameras, let us now have a look at the latest and the most modern in the photography technology, the digital single lens reflex cameras. A digital camera is a system which permits recording an image on an image sensor. An image sensor is a device which enables recording of a visual in digital information. Image sensors are of 2 types, CCD, that is the charge coupled device, and the CMOS. Of the 2, CCD are preferred simply because they have been used over a period of time, they have been time tested, a lot of improvement has taken place, development is taking place, and they are therefore a first choice as far as recording an image is concerned. The picture taking system in the case of a digital SLR camera is generally the same as that for any other SLR camera, except that in this there is a image sensor used and there are 2 shutters which are operating. When the light passes through the SLR camera, it goes on, the mirror lifts, and also one shutter lifts, and the image is formed on the image sensor, and as soon as the exposure is over, the second shutter comes in front and the picture is taken. Thereafter, the first shutter also comes back and one can view the picture again for the next shot. The other point to note is that the components of this digital SLR are different from that of the normal SLR, and it has certain advantages which we will see one by one. First of all, it is an SLR camera, and therefore, it gives the same view as that of the other SLR camera. That is, what we see is what we get. Secondly, it gives high quality result, though not as good as that of a film camera. It is a versatile camera which can be maneuvered easily. One can take a large number of pictures without waiting for another roll or another film. There is a greater scope. Depending upon the format that you use, you can take as much as 1,000 pictures in one go. Like any other SLR camera, it has the interchangeable lens facility. It is quick to shoot and it is built for speed. It is easy to focus and has a brighter viewfinder. It can operate even in low light without flash. The automatic settings in this camera provide you facility to compose the picture, to be more creative, and do not get bogged down with the aperture and the shutter speeds. In the end, there is a huge variety of cameras available in the market. There are cameras for anyone who wants to shoot a picture. They are available for the amateurs. They are available for the professionals. There are a large number of brands, maybe more than 1,000 brands, which are available to choose from. Whether you want to buy a CyberShot or whether you want to buy a high-end camera, it is available to you depending upon the price that you want to pay. You have the view camera for high-end result. You have the viewfinder camera to make sure that what you get is what you are shooting, and you have the SLR cameras for quick shooting, and above all, you have the digital SLR cameras which are becoming most popular and are likely to overtake with technology even the film cameras. In fact, some companies have stopped producing film cameras and are switching over to digital SLR cameras. A digital camera has many advantages over the other cameras. For example, it can take more pictures, it can be viewed immediately, the results can be seen immediately in the monitor, you can shoot much faster, and it is very versatile, and you can exercise full creativity when it comes to shooting through digital SLR cameras. However, whatever be the camera, whether you are an amateur or a professional, it is always necessary to understand the technological aspects, the creative aspects of a particular equipment, so that you can get the best out of it to your capabilities. A camera, whether it is made for an amateur or whether it is made for a professional, is not so important as the man behind the camera. And I would like to give you a quote in the end, and which goes like this: "Beauty can be seen in all things. Seeing and composing the beauty is what separates the snapshot from a photograph."